So thanks to Hollywood and America really dominating the media and the world for the last 100 years, most people know what the American dream is. But to get a definition just for this video, let's read out what Wikipedia say the American dream is. So the American dream is a national ethos of the United States, the set ideals, democracy, rights, liberty, opportunity and equality, in which freedom includes the opportunity for prosperity and success, as well as an upward social mobility for the family and children achieved through hard work in a society with few barriers. In a definition of the American dream by James Truslow Adams in 1931, life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement, regardless of social class or circumstances of birth. The American dream is rooted in the Declaration of Independence, which proclaims that all men are created equal with the right to life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Also, the US Constitution promotes similar freedom to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So I'm going to obviously criticize the American dream, but I think the problem also stems from the propaganda around the founding documents and who the founding fathers were talking about. So what Americans like to do now is look back at the founding documents and pretend the founding fathers were talking about everyone is equal. You know, if you're gay, straight, if you're black, white, native, you're all equal and you all have opportunities in the US system designed by us, the founding fathers. Then in reality, they weren't talking about natives, they weren't talking about black slaves, they weren't talking about Mexican people, they were talking about white Christians who were living in America. This is the equality, you know, for everyone, is if you're in this very set group of people, if you're, you know, from Europe and you're Christian essentially. Because what people like to do now is take those words and apply them to more things than they represent. And obviously the words are very good. You know, if we live by these principles, these actual principles, then that is obviously great for America, right? But it really negates the facts of who was writing these documents. You know, most of the founding fathers were very wealthy men. A lot of them owned slaves, and while a lot of them were unconventional for their time, like Thomas Jefferson, he edited all the miracles out of the Bible. You know, can you imagine Barack Obama getting elected president if he did that or something? And then you have people like George Washington, who obviously freed all his slaves when he died and everything. And you have Benjamin Franklin and interesting characters like that. But at the same time, fundamentally, where is it in the founding documents that say we shall end slavery and give natives protected rights in the United States? It doesn't talk about that. George Washington, you know, butchered Native Americans in many of his campaigns and stuff. So we're already starting with a skewed view of what America is, and one that promotes America as this massive beacon of hope, and you can just come here and make it for yourself. And we know from history, and we know from today, you cannot make it in America regardless of who you are. You have to be already cut from a certain cloth, and a lot of the time it is from your connections and everything. So the founding documents were written in 1776 and a bit after America was founded and everything, but let's think about all the discrimination America has carried out, institutional and social, against various groups. So for example, let's first take the slaves. It's only 100 years after the Declaration of Independence to free the slaves, and then you basically had slavery by a different name with Jim Crow, which lasted until the 60s, and then you can make an argument today that institutional African American discrimination still exists through the private prison industry, through the war on drugs. If America truly followed its principles, you know, based on the Declaration of Independence and the American dream, why does it discriminate against African Americans so heavily? Where is the equality for everyone? How can African Americans make it in America if the system of America, which is meant to be based on these ideals in the Declaration of Independence and Constitution, how can they make it big or make it as a class if they're so oppressed institutionally by the very people who talk about the American dream? You know, America's a meritocracy. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And like Martin Luther King said, you know, you can't tell a black person to pull himself up by his bootstraps when you haven't given him boots to begin with, because you haven't given him the opportunities, because it's institutionally racist. And then you have groups like the Irish and the Italians who were discriminated for years, but obviously they assimilated eventually because discrimination ended against them, and, you know, because they're white and Christian, it's pretty easy for them to assimilate and become part of the general American society as Americans see it. And obviously you have the natives, who the Americans committed genocide against time and again, and are obviously still discriminated against today. So it's a myth that anyone in America can make it, right? Because if you have institutional discrimination against most non-white groups throughout your history and going on to today, how can they aspire to, you know, come to America, work hard and make it? Now, this isn't to say there aren't examples of people doing this. People coming from nothing, you know, whether it's black people, whether it's Latinos, and white people, obviously, poor white people as well. So, you know, some billionaires work themselves up, you know, for example, people like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, even though they didn't come from like poor backgrounds or anything, they still work themselves up to prime positions in America. Donald Trump's family initially, you know, I think it was his granddad who came over here and became wealthy and everything. I guess that it plays into the American dream, because America obviously isn't like my country, the UK, where you have the aristocracy going back 1,000 years, because most of America's elite. You know, you have some old money in there, but even that old money only dates back about 200 years. But then you have a lot of new money from the last 100, 150 years, and obviously a lot of people made it in Prohibition and through various businesses when America was less run by corporations and everything. So it can happen, and obviously someone like Barack Obama is a very good example of the American dream, because, you know, he's a poor guy raised just by his mum, and he worked himself up to become president and everything. So it can happen, but these stories are good for the ruling class to be like, America is fine because look at Barack Obama, look at Mark Zuckerberg, look at all these people who made it, so you can make it too because they made it. But factually that's obviously not correct, as most people are never going to be wealthy. Most people in America live paycheck to paycheck, and to tell them if you work hard you can make it big like Obama, Bill Gates, you can make it big like Trump, you can make it big like all these people, because in America there's no barriers to anything. You know, if you just work hard and you just have a good work ethic and you're smart, American capitalism and freedom will reward you by making you wealthy, and potentially you can become president one day. When obviously, if you think about the reality of America and American history, that is totally a lie. The American dream doesn't exist to most people because the American system is institutionally racist. So a lot of non-white people cannot ever make it, and because it's also an oligarchy in many aspects, most white people can't make it either, because, you know, they're always going to remain poor. But it's just even harder for non-whites to, you know, have the American dream. And obviously you have other things being critical of the American dream. A lot of films do it. For example, both Scarface films, it's like, what even is the American dream? Just making loads of money off the backs of people, stabbing in the back. And that's what billionaires do. Obviously, you know, is it such a great thing, you know, the modern American dream, to aspire to be super wealthy? Because what does often being wealthy entail? Billionaires don't become wealthy without exploiting people. Is that a good thing to promote in society? Not, you know, for example, in socialism where it's like live within your means and sort of be content in your role and everything. Is it great to play into this mindset of like literally trample on anyone who gets in your way to become the top? That's the American dream right there. Just screw everyone over and exploit everyone you can to make it big. And I think that's another good criticism of the American dream. So this is just my perspective on the American dream. It obviously comes from a good place, and you can obviously say, if you read the founding documents in a modern context, it sounds very, very good, but it really denies the reality of what America has always been, and it denies the reality of what America is today. The American dream does not exist for 99% of people, and you get lucky sometimes, and you may make it, like Barack Obama, for example, but that just can't happen for most people. Because of the institutional racism and just the general crony capitalist system, most people cannot make it in America because it's designed that way to keep the elite above everyone else, to make the 1% richer, to make the 0.1% richer at the expense of everyone else. People can't generally work their way through the system to the top, and if they do, you have to be super cutthroat, which is that even a great thing to inspire in people. So if you like the video, leave a like and potentially subscribe. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me at The Tabernacle on both Twitter and Instagram. I also have a WordPress blog where I write about stuff like that. You can find that at The Tabernacle WordPress. Maybe share this video with someone you think may like it, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.